As everyone knows, the Australian car's natural resting place is Facebook Marketplace. You can find all kinds of Ford and Holdens on there, from cracked out chariots to really clean examples. But what about the auctions? I took a trip down to my local auction house to check out what kind of Aussie cars they had to offer. When you're talking about Australian cars, you can't not start off with a ute, and that's exactly what I found here at the Australian auctions. What looks to be a VS SS. Now, it could just be a normal VS ute that has been swapped with a 5 litre. That is pretty common. The fact that it has a Statesman or a Calais interior. Oh, what the hell? Oh, we need to investigate that in a second, but let's admire the outside first. It's in this really nice bluey green color. One of the wheels is different compared to all the other ones. The wheels that are on this thing look like every single Aussie tyre shop alloy that you can buy from the 90s. My Lancer had very similar wheels. I feel like they made these in so many different stud patterns that people just chuck them on really anything. But here it is. Don't know if this is actually an S-Pack. Is it possible to have an S-Pack V8 or does it have to be an SS? Well, before we get under the bonnet, let's have a look on the inside. Well, inside looks pretty decent. The seats aren't really bolted down, but you know, who really cares about that? This is definitely a VS radial tuned suspension. We've got a 4L60E, of course. This one does have a tacho and cruise control, so it's definitely not a base model. But weirdly enough, this might just be a ute thing, but it has wind-up windows. I'm not an expert in these Holdens. I do really like them. I would definitely own a VS ute like this, but it's just got some weird features in it. But where is this water coming from? It doesn't look like the roof is wet. Don't really care enough to investigate that much. What I really do care about though is what's under the bonnet, because there's not a whole lot happening on the inside of this thing. Classic Holden thing to do. Chuck a HSV badge on it. Oh my god. Yep, that is definitely an Iron Lion. Looks like we've got some extractors, pacemakers most likely. I love the way these engines look with the banana intake manifold. Those classic older looking rocker covers. That power steering pump looks like it's straight out of an ED Falcon. Probably uses the same one. Otherwise, it's all pretty standard stuff under here. Nothing really to report. Doesn't look like it's really leaking that much. Does look like it has some aftermarket engine mounts, or maybe they've just been painted silver, who knows. Strut bar thingo. The battery is like awkwardly low in the engine bay as well. Look at this canopy as well, color matched. Let's have a look here. Man, I would love a ute. It's time for me to get a Commodore, and it's time for me to get a ute. So maybe in the near future, if I find a good deal, I will buy one, because I really want a Commodore for the channel. I want everything. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I like a lot of cars, and I would own a lot of cars, but one can only have so much money. But yeah, VS Commodore ute with an Iron Lion. I'm doing my weekly check of this Honda Jazz with the puddle in the back seat. See how bad it's getting? Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, that smells rancid in there. Still has water. Now, the next car we're going to talk about is one of the best cars Ford Australia has ever produced. And of course, it's a Falcon, but it's not any Falcon. It's an Eco LPI. Now, if you guys know anything about these cars, they are extremely, extremely good, in my opinion. They are a dedicated gas. However, it's not a gassy motor. It's a high comp NA motor that is gas injected rather than running on gas vapors. This has 6 gas injectors, which means that not only is it really good on fuel, but it's actually quite powerful and quicker than the standard NA model. And because of that, in later FGX models, they ended up putting turbo rear ends in them. So turbo drive shaft, turbo diff axles, because they made so much torque down low that they actually needed a little bit more heavy duty stuff in the back. So my good mate Peter, he has an FGX Eco LPI, and we found out that it's got the open diff out of a G6C turbo. So that's pretty cool. I think that's a bit of an Easter egg, if you know, you know kind of thing. This is just a testament to how good these Falcons are. 302,000 Ks. That is nothing compared to what these can do. I knew a friend of a friend that had a Mark II XR6 Eco LPI, just like this one, that had over 500,000 kilometers on it. Granted, he did blow the original motor up because he ran it low on oil, but it got to about 500,000 and then he made the motor go bang. But for the money, an Eco LPI XR6 is around 10, 11 grand for a really nice one. You get really nice comfy seats. You get a 6-speed ZF, which is a great transmission. You get this really nice steering wheel. You get Sync 2 as well. This thing, great on fuel, powerful, reliable. I mean, what more could you want out of a daily driven car? My mate Peter consistently gets 600 to 700 kilometers out of a tank, and it costs about 70 to 80 cents, depending on where you go, per liter to fill up this thing. So for a 90 liter tank, if it's completely empty, you're paying around $40 to $50 for a full tank. For a regular Falcon like my AU, you're paying well over $100 for a full tank. So in my book, very, very good buy. Wow, there is a lot of tire shine around this engine. Holy crap. When you pop the bonnet, you really are just looking at a standard NAFG Barra, except the only difference you'll find is that the injectors are a lot bigger in size because they are LPG injectors. Notice you won't find a gas mixer here or the gas converter, and I feel like these cars are very, very underappreciated because they are so good. Like I said a million times already, great on fuel, good power, and LPG is a very sustainable fuel. You really can't go wrong with one of these. Over here, we have a pretty nice looking VZ wagon. Now, the cool thing about Holden wagons versus Ford wagons is that Holden wagons and most of their utes are actually independent rear suspension, as you can see, as opposed to all the Fords that have a solid rear end. So say what you will about that, but let's take a look at the inside. The one thing I've always really liked about Holdens is how solid their doors feel, ironically, considering some of them are built like crap, but they have very solid doors for a piece of shit Australian car. But just listen to this. Like, that just sounds solid. But on the inside, we have some nice half cloth, half leather seats. We have a leather steering wheel. This looks like, but otherwise pretty standard stuff. Got a few Ks on it, 267,000. If it was an eco, I'd say that it's just barely broken in, but because this is a 3.6 liter Alloy Tech V6, it's getting a bit long in the tooth, and it's probably due for change if it hasn't already been done. But let's have a closer look at this Alloy Tech that's hiding under the bonnet. Bonnet struts are completely gone, but look at that. There's an intake on it, growler intake. Some Alloy Techs are not bad, you know, depends how they've been maintained. If they've been serviced regularly, then they're generally okay, but most of these cars are very, very neglected. So, but just judging by the fact that this has a growler intake on it, it was either abused or it was taken care of, one of the two, no in between. Because who would put an aftermarket intake on a basically base model VZ wagon? Of course, it's missing the fuel cap like every single Commodore. Oh, it's an SVZ. I think this is the closest thing to an SV6 wagon you could get in the VZ generation. So that's probably what it is. So this Alloy Tech probably puts out a little bit more power than the standard one. This next car I actually did see on the website, but I'm pretty sure it's already sold, so I'm going to take very, very good care of it. This is a VT S-Pack finished in Tiger Mica, very iconic color. It's no ordinary VT because it has a factory L67. And for those of you who have been living under a rock since the mid-90s, that of course means that it has a 3.8 liter Ecotec with a supercharger bolted on the top of it. But before we get to that, let's check out the interior. And the interior is very cool on these late 90s Holdens. Look at the design. I love it. I actually love it. I love all this retro stuff. It reminds me of when I was a kid and I was sitting in taxis and stuff, and all of my parents' friends' cars, a lot of them did have Fords and Holdens, so it's very nostalgic for me to look at this VT here and just see this sick design on the seats. Now, the VT was a very iconic car for Holden because it was basically the first modern Commodore that Holden released back in 1997 or 1998, I'm not too sure, but this one is a 98 model. I don't know if those kilometers are real. It's in pretty bad nick for only 125,000 Ks, but nevertheless, this is a factory L67 Commodore. Unfortunately, it has the 4L60E, which is not the best, but everyone lost their minds when Holden released this car because the AU first came out in 1998, and me being mostly a Ford person, I have to admit that this car is a lot better looking than an AU Falcon, but the iconic front end of a VT is just unmistakable. unmistakable. We do have the cruise control check right here. Probably one of the last cars, Australian cars, to have a factory cassette player. Tape deck, 8-track, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this interior is so cool. But let's have a look at the L67. I'm so keen. I much prefer the front of a VT over a VX. I think they both look good, but VTs just look like straight out of the 90s, which is what I love. Look at that. Factory supercharged V6. Of course, push rod, 3.8 litre, very, very nice engines. The cool thing about the L67 isn't it's not just an eco with a supercharger. There are actually a lot of differences on the inside. I'm not quite sure of all of them, so correct me in the comments below if I do get them wrong, but I'm pretty sure the pistons are beefier, the rods are beefier, the crank I think is different, and the camshaft, and obviously the lifters and the rocker arms, I'm not sure if they are any different, but I do know that the bottom end is a lot stronger than a regular eco. Supercharger, I'm not quite sure of the brand of the supercharger. I think it might be an Eaton. You can definitely tell that this engine bay was designed for a V8 because there is so much room in the front. Looks like a stock exhaust there. Maybe it has a catback. Let's go around the back. It's missing the spoiler. That's a bit of a shame. The original reg, PWT. You can definitely tell this is from the 90s because of the font. Victoria on the move. After this, they went to Victoria, the place to be. A VT with a stock exhaust, very rare. About time we got to another Ford, and this one is a little bit special. This is one of the last BF Falcons Ford Australia ever produced. This is a BF Mark 2.5 aggressor pack, so it has these little bumper extensions here, different side skirts, different wheels as well. These are called rip curl wheels, and a different rear valence / rear diffuser, and this one's finished in dash green as well. Not one of my favorite colors, I must admit. The fact it is a BF Mark 2.5 is pretty cool. Now on the inside, it's a little bit of a clusterfuck because upon first glance, I've already noticed that this is missing the XR6 steering wheel. It's got this rubber plasticky steering wheel on it, which is out of a base model, but that's okay. I'll excuse that. The clock is also out of a Fairmont or a Fairlane, but because this is a BF Mark 2.5, most of these were fitted with a 6-speed ZF. Some people who are a little bit mentally inept did order these with a 4-speed BTR. I mean, you got to be completely mental lobotomized to buy a BF Mark II without a ZF transmission. I owned one. I bought it because it was really cheap and I needed a daily at the time, but I had a BF Mark II 4-speed BTR. Like, come on. This one also has premium sound, which means it has that little sub you can see on the parcel shelf, and upgraded audio, so it has different tweeters and stuff like that. They don't sound too bad for a Falcon. The headliner, surprisingly, isn't sagging. Color ICC with dual zone climate control, as you can see here. But yeah, not an awful lot to say. The main changes that Ford did to these cars were on the exterior. Like I said, the bumper splitter things, the side skirts and the rear valence, as well as different wheels. But under the bonnet, it's the same old B series Barra. I've never really seen this gray bit on the grille part. I don't know if that's a factory aggressor pack thing. I could be completely wrong. Maybe some of these did come with it, but I've never personally seen one. But under the bonnet, like I said, it's just your regular BF Barra. Now, there are some differences between a BF Barra and a BA Barra, which some people don't know, but the oil filters are different. They use a Z516 rather than a Z9, and they also have 2 NOx sensors instead of 1. I'm incredibly artistic, if you know what I mean, about Fords, as you can probably tell, but luckily, thank God, this isn't fitted with dual fuel. Otherwise, it'd be an ugly, bloody gas mixer there. But yeah, pretty cool car, especially for a P-plater. It is a little bit rare, but honestly, it's not too bad. I actually, you know, wouldn't mind one of these because they are getting quite hard to find, these BF Mark 2.5s, but yeah, not a bad car. A lot more Commodores than Falcons today, but I can't complain because I love both. This car I'm standing in front of is pretty special. Ford never came out with a competitor for one of these, but this is a VZ SS Crewman Thunder as well. So this is basically VZ SS wagon, which I don't think they ever made, but it has the back chopped off to make it a ute. So it has 4 doors, as you can see. It's a ute with a tray on the back. Well, let's take a look inside and see what it's like. Wow, now this is a pleasant surprise. This seems like a very rare car. VZ SS Crewman Thunder, so it has the 6-liter engine, and it's got a T56 6-speed manual. Check that out. How cool is this? It also only has 142,000 kilometers. It looks like it was owned by an old person because it has woolly seat covers on it. But look at that, it's got a leather interior, and yes, it does have back seats because of course it's a Crewman. I low-key like these cars because you have the practicality of a ute, but it also has 4 seats, so you can take all your mates and all your junk. Unfortunately, I don't think they're as desirable as a normal just single cab ute, but they have a bit of a charm about them, which is the fact that they're a 4-door Crewman ute. You don't really see many of these driving around. And yep, no cap, 6-liter V8. Look at that. Now this is cool. 6-liter V8, even has an OTR from VCM Performance. Very, very nice touch. Looks like stock headers, but this thing looks very, very tidy. Not too sure why anyone would send such a mint example of a VZ Crewman to the auctions, but it is here, and I do highly, highly rate it. Don't rate the tray on the back. If I had this thing, I would definitely put the stock tray back on it, but nevertheless, it is still very, very cool to see. A 6-liter manual VZ Crewman. That's in really, really nice condition. This FG over here is basically the equivalent of that BF Mark 2.5 Aggressor. This is a XR50, which means it is a 50th anniversary edition FG, so 50 years of the Falcon. Pretty cool. This particular one I actually saw on the website. It is listed as being on Wover, which means that it's been written off before. Bear that in mind, guys, if you are going to bid on this. But as you can see, it's got the 50th anniversary badges here. It's also got G6C mirrors. This one looks like it's on fake Argent wheels. There's that XR50 badge. Has a little bit of questionable repairs on it. I'm not sure where it was hit. I have a feeling it was in the back because the panel gaps are a bit off. The roof as well looks like it's kinked in at the top, but it does look quite tweaked. This also has a XR8 bonnet on it. In the interior, the seats are different. You have those XR50 seats. The headliner is completely ruined. Unsurprisingly, it smells like ciggies. This steering wheel as well is horrifically sun damaged. I'm not going to sit in this thing, but XR50 on Wover, so hopefully it goes cheap. But I don't see a reason why anyone should purchase this thing, because piling money into it, in my opinion, isn't really worth it considering it's on Wover.